My son thought I was weak. He had been thinking that for years. He believed that because I was 68, walked with a cane, and rarely argued, I was no longer capable of making my own decisions. He was wrong, but I never told him. I wanted him to keep believing it. My name is Robert Hayes, and for 36 years, I ran a small construction company in Ohio. It wasn't a huge business, but it paid for my home, raised my family, and allowed me to put both of my children through college. My son, Michael, joined the company after graduating. At first, I was proud. I thought he would eventually take over the business. But slowly, Michael changed. He stopped asking for advice. Then he stopped listening. Finally, he started making decisions without telling me. I noticed money disappearing from accounts. Contracts were being changed. Employees I trusted were suddenly being replaced by Michael's friends. Whenever I questioned him, he would smile and say, "Dad, you need to relax. You're getting older." I never argued. I simply nodded. That made him even more confident. One Monday morning, Michael walked into my office carrying a folder. "We need to talk." I looked up from my desk. "About what?" "The company." I leaned back. "What about it?" He placed the folder in front of me. "I think it's time you stepped away." I stared at him. "Stepped away? You're not as sharp as you used to be." I felt my heart tighten, but I kept my voice calm. "You think I'm incapable of running my own company?" Michael sighed. "Dad, this isn't personal." "It sounds personal." He opened the folder. Inside was a transfer agreement. He wanted me to sign over controlling ownership of the company to him. I looked at the papers. Then I looked at my son. "You've been planning this." He smiled. "I'm trying to protect what you built." I almost laughed. "Protect it?" He was trying to take it. But I didn't tell him what I knew. I had already discovered the missing money. I knew about the secret accounts. I knew about the contracts Michael had redirected to another company. And I knew that 2 weeks earlier, he had secretly met with a lawyer about declaring me mentally incapable of managing the business. He thought I hadn't noticed. He thought I was an old man sitting quietly in his office, waiting for someone else to make decisions for me. So I signed the first page. Michael smiled. "Thank you, Dad." I looked into his eyes. "You're welcome." He gathered the papers and walked out. The moment the door closed, I opened the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was a black folder. On the front were 3 words: Michael's mistakes. I had been collecting evidence for almost 2 years, and my son had just given me exactly what I needed. For the next 2 weeks, I acted exactly the way Michael expected me to. I stopped going into the office. I let him believe he had control. I spent my mornings at home, drinking coffee, reading the newspaper, and pretending I had accepted my son's decision. Michael visited twice. Both times, he spoke to me like I was a child. "You should enjoy retirement, Dad." I smiled. I planned to. He never asked why I wasn't upset. That was the problem with people who underestimate you. They stop looking for the truth. Behind the scenes, my attorney was working. His name was David Collins. I had known him for nearly 20 years. He had helped me build the company, write contracts, and protect my family. More importantly, he had helped me create something Michael didn't know existed. A second company. 3 years earlier, I had created a holding company and transferred several important assets into it. The land beneath our largest warehouse, 2 commercial properties, and the rights to several long-term construction contracts. Michael thought he was taking control of my company. He didn't realize he was only taking control of the part one had allowed him to see. But there was something even more important. The black folder contained evidence. Bank transfers, emails, copies of altered contracts, payments made to a company secretly controlled by Michael, and a recording of a conversation between Michael and the company's accountant. In that conversation, Michael had admitted that he planned to push me out. He had even said something that I still remembered word for word. "Dad won't fight. He's too old." When David played the recording for me, I didn't say anything. I simply closed my eyes. Not because I was surprised, because I was disappointed. A son can make mistakes. A son can become greedy. But there is something different about deliberately destroying the person who spent his life building your future. A few days later, Michael called. Dad, everything is finalized. Good. You should come by the office tomorrow. Why? I want you to see what I've done. I smiled. Of course. The next morning, I put on my best suit. I walked into the office using my cane. Several employees looked uncomfortable when they saw me. Michael was standing behind my old desk. His desk now. At least that's what he thought. He handed me a document. We've restructured the company. I looked at it. Congratulations. He smiled. Thanks. Then he lowered his voice. You don't have to worry about anything anymore. I looked at my son. I'm not worried. He laughed. You should be enjoying this. I smiled. I am. He didn't understand. That afternoon, I met David at his office. He placed one final document in front of me. If you're ready, Robert, this will end everything. I looked at the signature line. For 2 years, I had waited for this moment. I picked up the pen and signed. The next morning, Michael's entire world was going to change. Section 3. At 9 o'clock the next morning, Michael walked into the office expecting another ordinary day. Instead, he found David Collins standing in the conference room with 2 other attorneys. Michael stopped. What is this? David placed a folder on the table. We need to discuss the ownership structure of the company. Michael looked confused. I'm the owner. David shook his head. No, you're the managing director of the operating company. Michael stared at him. What does that mean? It means you don't own the properties, contracts, or assets you thought you controlled. Michael's face changed. What are you talking about? David opened the folder. 3 years earlier, I had transferred the company's most valuable assets into a separate holding company. The warehouse, the commercial properties, the long-term contracts, even several pieces of expensive equipment. Michael had taken over the business operations, but the valuable assets belonged to the holding company, and I was the sole owner. Michael looked at the documents. Then he started shaking his head. No, David continued. There is more. He placed another document on the table. This is a formal notice regarding financial misconduct. Michael's face went pale. We have evidence of unauthorized transfers from company accounts. That isn't true. David slid copies of the bank statements toward him. Michael looked at them. Every transfer was there. Every payment. Every hidden account. Every transaction connected to the company he had secretly created. Then David played the recording. Michael heard his own voice. Dad won't fight. He's too old. The room went silent. Michael lowered his head. Where did you get that? I walked into the room. He looked up. For the first time in years, my son looked at me differently. Not like an old man. Not like someone weak. Like someone he had underestimated. You recorded me? No. I pointed toward the document. T.S. You forgot that other people keep records. Michael stood up. Dad, please. I looked at him. Don't call me Dad now. His eyes filled with tears. I made mistakes. You made choices. I was trying to build something. You were trying to take what wasn't yours. He stepped toward me. I can fix this. No, Michael. I handed him one final document. This is your resignation. He stared at it. You're firing me? No, I looked him directly in the eyes. I'm giving you exactly what you wanted. He looked confused. You wanted control. I pointed toward the operating company. Now you can have it. Then I pointed toward the other documents. But you will have to rebuild it without my money, my properties, or my contracts. Michael's face collapsed. He finally understood. He hadn't won anything. He had simply lost everything I had spent decades building. But I wasn't finished yet, because there was one more secret I had never told him. And that secret involved his younger sister. Section 4. Michael stared at me. What does my sister have to do with this? I didn't answer immediately. For years, Michael had believed his sister, Emily, knew nothing about the business. That was exactly what I wanted him to believe. David opened another folder. Emily has been working with your father for the past 2 years. Michael looked at me in disbelief. Working with him? I nodded. She helped me review the company accounts. Michael shook his head. She wouldn't do that. She already did. David placed several documents on the table. Emily had discovered the missing money long before I did. She had quietly gathered copies of invoices, bank records, and emails. Then she brought everything to me. Michael looked at the documents. Why didn't either of you tell me? I looked at him. Because we wanted to know how far you would go. He looked down. And you let me take over the company. Yes. Why? Because I needed you to reveal the truth yourself. Michael's eyes filled with tears. You're my father. I know. And you planned all of this? I planned to protect what I built. He sat down. For the first time, he looked like the son I remembered from childhood. Not the arrogant businessman. Not the man who had tried to take everything. Just my son. Dad, I'm sorry. I looked at him for a long moment. I believe you're sorry. He looked up hopefully. But being sorry doesn't erase what you did. He nodded. I know. The lawyers finalized the documents. Michael resigned from the company. The investigation into the missing money continued, but I gave him one chance to make things right. He had to repay what he had taken. He had to cooperate with the investigation. And he had to apologize to every employee he had pushed aside. He agreed. A few weeks later, I returned to my office. The same office Michael had once taken from me. The same desk. The same window. But something felt different. Emily walked, in carrying 2 cups of coffee. You okay, Dad? I smiled. I am now. She sat across from me. Do you think he'll change? I looked out the window. I don't know. Then my phone rang. It was Michael. I answered. Dad. Yes. I just wanted to say thank you. I frowned. For what? For giving me a chance to fix what I broke. I closed my eyes. Maybe this was the beginning of something better. But there was still one thing Michael didn't know. The biggest decision I had made wasn't about the company. It was about what would happen to everything I owned after I was gone. And when Michael eventually discovered the truth, he would realize that I had been planning for the future long before he ever tried to take it from me. Section 5. 6 months later, Michael had changed. Not completely, but enough for me to notice. He started showing up at work early. He stopped making decisions without asking the people around him. He even apologized to several employees he had treated badly. One afternoon, he came to my house. He stood at the front door for almost a minute before knocking. When I opened it, he looked nervous. Can I come in? I stepped aside. We sat in the living room. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then Michael said, I finally understand why you did everything. I looked at him. Do you? He nodded. You weren't trying to punish me. No. You were trying to teach me. I smiled. I was trying to make sure you learned something before it was too late. He looked down at his hands. I thought you were weak. I know. I thought because you were getting older, you couldn't protect yourself. I laughed quietly. Getting older isn't the same as becoming helpless. He smiled for the first time. Then I gave him an envelope. What is this? Open it. Inside was a copy of my estate plan. Michael read the first page. His eyes widened. You're leaving the company to Emily? Yes. He looked at me. Why? Because she proved she could protect it without destroying people. He nodded slowly. Then I handed him another document. This is for you. He read it. It gave him an opportunity to earn a minority share of the business again, but only after completing several years of honest work and repaying every dollar he had taken. He looked at me. You're giving me another chance? One chance. He hugged me. It was the first time my son had hugged me in years. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had one. I felt like I had gotten my son back. I had spent 2 years planning my response because I knew revenge would only destroy what was left of our family. The real payback was making Michael understand that his father's age was never his weakness. My silence was not fear. My patience was not surrender. I had simply been waiting for the right moment to show him the truth. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the final Payback for more emotional family betrayal. revenge, karma, and justice stories. Because sometimes the person you think is powerless is the one who has been planning the final move all along. This is the final payback.